Dave Allen's back in the ring this week. Interesting fight. Makhmudov, obviously once upon a time, struck the fear of God into everyone, not just by the way he looked, but what he did in the ring. Obviously, Catterall dispelled some of that myth.
Yeah.
But it is still a risky proposition for Dave. We are obviously all very pleased to see David in very good form and moving forward and with ambition and obviously, you know, having beat Johnny Fisher. But this is a different fight now, isn't it? This is a different challenge for him.
Absolutely. Listen, risk versus reward, you have to go for it. And I think that Dave now, as we've seen in the condition that he's in this week, he's teamed up with, you know, Nigel Travis and Jamie Moore, who've done an incredible job with him. And he's fell back in love with the sport. And I think that the victory over Johnny Fisher has opened up a lot of doors for him. He gets this one against Makhmudov now, who was one of the most feared fighters in the world, but has lost a couple of times since then. And it's a winnable fight. It's a fight, actually, I think he wins. I think that he's smart enough early on to sort of weather any heavy storms that come towards him. He's got that boxing IQ. He's a good body puncher. Catterall was the one that exposed Makhmudov to the body in the first defeat that he received. And I just think that you look at it all and you go, I think it's a genius move, really, because Makhmudov is a big name. It's a big step up, but it's a winnable fight, which sets up then a big fight with possibly Deontay So, you know, how careers can turn around. And I'm pleased for Dave Allen because he's a great guy, but also he's better than people have seen. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, we had Johnny Nelson on the show last week. Let's have a listen to what Johnny said about this fight.
I think I looked at Dave probably 3 years ago and thought, you should jack in. You're getting hit too often. It's great talking about it when you're doing a game. It's 5, 10 years down the line, you think you should have walked out 3 or 4 fights before you did. If it's about the money, I get it. But he wants to... And he lives modestly with his family. But I think
it's about the money, John, isn't it? It's about the money.
But you know what? Go down the British title route. Get that to say I've done that. That's in the records. I don't want to be in a record book saying Dave Allen, he was a tough fighter. Yeah. Be a former British champion. You know, because there's strong possibility that could come about. Dave will wear you down and stick to you like glue, and he'll stay at one level, at one pace all the way through. And he's not got an up pace or a down pace. So if Mahmoudov's heart is weak, Dave will do him through. But if his heart's strong and he still thinks he's got a little bit, you know, I think Dave comes off second place.
Do you?
Yeah.
Interesting, Adam, that originally Dave Allen, post the Johnny Fisher fight, was talking about British titles and wanting to win British titles and wanting to do it because it's something that he'd get some praise from his old man for, because he said he didn't get much praise from his old man. I think a little bit tongue-in-cheek, notwithstanding it, some of it probably serious as well. Do you agree with Johnny, or do you think that this was the right pathway for him?
I do agree with Johnny. I think people diminish the British title, and I think that's baffling. It's a phenomenal achievement to be able to get your hands on a Lonsdale belt. And I thought that the door was there for him to maybe walk into. I know that we've got, obviously, the Fraser Clark and Jamie TKV fight. I think that still is a target for Dave. This fight at the weekend, for me, kind of opens maybe a door to a fight that would generate some serious cash. We were talking at the weekend, weren't we, that if he beats Makhmudov, and I can't even believe that we're here talking about this, 3 years removed. 3 years ago, if we'd have been talking about this, I'd have been thinking, you're absolutely bonkers. But if he pulls this off at the weekend, you're probably talking something like a Deontay Wilder or something like that next, which is mad. Whereas I would personally love him to try and go for the Lonsdale belt.
I mean, but this is prize fighting, and he will get that opportunity for the Lonsdale belt, I'm sure. You know, with Jamie TKV, you know, fighting for that belt against... Fraser Clark, against Fraser Clark. You go, he will get that opportunity. Even if he puts in a big performance against Makhmudov and loses, you would think that he's still in the frame because, you know, he's reinvented himself in so many ways.
Let's not forget, he's already been stopped off Fraser Clark, and that's my thing. When I saw that happen, that's the end for me, and I didn't want to see Dave Allen in the ring. You know, I'm maybe a bit pessimistic. I don't want to see the fella get hurt. He's a lovely fella. He's got the right team around him in Jamie and Nigel. They will look after him. They will make sure he doesn't get into any bother. He doesn't get himself into any sticky situations. But I still worry for him, as in he's been through the mill. He's had a lot of
Fraser Clark that he lost to back in 2023, got knocked out in 6th round, who was an unmotivated, unconditioned Dave Allen. This is different.
He has to be better than that, though.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that he will be better than that. Have you seen the shape that he's in? And I think he's got the right team around him as well. And Jamie Moore is a great student of the sport, and he will have great tactics. If you look at Makhmudov and his defeats against Catterall, who moves early on and keeps out of range, lets him blow a gasket, then jumps on him. Makhmudov's one of those guys that loses heart very, very quickly. if you get on top of him. He's a one-track bully, really. Yeah. And I think that Dave Allen has the know-how and the savvy to navigate that early on and win the fight.
I was just worried that the Johnny Fisher wins are making him is making him look.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you next. I mean, is it not fair to assume that this risk? I mean, ultimately, the centre of this fight will be financial return. Yeah. So, is it not a case of if he goes in against Makhmudov, if he were to, the worst case scenario, he were to not win this fight, but put in a performance that most people think is still an advancement on perhaps the pre-Johnny Fisher Dave Allen, it would still leave him with a situation where perhaps he could fight David Adelaide, he could fight Jamie TKV or Fraser Clark, the winner of that fight. So it's kind of a no-win situation, a no-lose situation for Dave, unless he gets knocked out quick by this.
He could get more than £1 million for fighting Deontay Wilder if he puts a good performance in. I hope he does. I really hope he gets life-changing money and he retires and he retires healthy with his faculties intact. And I hope he wins the British title. I was campaigning for him years ago to try and go the British title route. He lost to David Price.
Do you think he's fighting for the right reasons, Paul? Do you think David's fighting for the right reasons?
Sometimes at the end, who does? At the end of it, for me, it was a job for the last 2 years. Yeah. It was always my passion and my livelihoods and my life and everything that I wanted. But for the last 2 years of my pro career, it was a job, and I was going to the gym as a job, as working. You give anything to go back to that gym.
Absolutely.
But at the end of your career, when you had a long, hard career, it probably starts playing in your mind a little bit. That
I think for Dave Allen,
changed,
having children changed him. Changed him and sort of made him fall in love with the sport again because he's doing it for a purpose, for a reason where he never really committed himself.
But my point, lads, is it a dangerous thing to pick fights solely based upon the money you can get from that fight? Is that a dangerous thing to do?
Of course it is. It is, but any fight can be dangerous, kind of. Yeah. At the end of the day, any fight can change your life. Any fight, in a positive way and unfortunately in a negative way.
How does he go about winning it, Spence?
He's got to be careful early, and he's got that. He's got a good defence. He rolls the shoulders very well, and he's a good body puncher as well. Yeah. Makhmudov was taken apart by a Catterall to the body, and I think that's how he does it. He sets traps as well, which is quite unusual for a heavyweight. We see him going downstairs there, throwing the right hand over the top. That's the key shot, by the way. Yeah. Makhmudov is a guy that moves in straight lines, comes out in straight lines, doesn't move his head at all, carries his left hand quite low. And Dave Allen just has to find the holes or create the holes, and I think that he has the ability, the technical ability to do that, and also defensively is very sound. I think body shots is going to. Yeah, absolutely. I think that body shots are a big part of victory here. I think a big part of the game plan. I just think that he has a style and a technical ability to be able to pull it off.
Well, mate. He's got the character
as well, as you say. Big bit of balls.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the aura around Makhmudov has definitely dwindled.
I was going to say that must have happened.
Yeah. And Dave Allen, he won't be frightened going into this at the weekend. No. He'll be game for it. He'll know that there's a bit of a storm in the first 3-4 rounds, and if he can weather that, he's got a real chance.
Do you think he can win it?
Yeah, because I think precisely for the same reasons that Adam talked about, I think he's been chopped down, Makhmudov. I think that's gone now, that fear factor that people have of him. And I think Catterall took his heart a little bit. And it shows that potentially what Johnny was talking about was if Makhmudov, if it gets a bit amongst the muck and bullets, we'll see how big his heart is in this particular fight, because Dave Allen, in this vein of thinking right now, I think has the heart to potentially take it away from Makhmudov. But what I do think is it's a good fight. It's an interesting fight, and it's a fight that Dave gets to top the bill on, make some money out of. I hope he wins so that he can then pivot on to the next sort of situation. But we mentioned earlier on Jamie TKV and Fraser Clark and that fight. They were in the studio the other day talking. Let's have a listen to what they had to say.
Win this fight, champion, then maybe you should pack up and stop boxing. I was thinking, you're 34. There's so many big fights now in the heavyweight division. It's at its best it's ever been. And I was quite shocked that Jim said that.
I've got some Listerine in my bag out there. I'm going to leave it here for Jim White. So when he comes in the morning, it's for him to rinse out his mouth. He said that. He said that comment, and people have made quite a lot of it, to be honest. But there's plenty of life left in me yet. Awesome. Do you know what I mean? I feel fit, fresh. I'm looking forward to boxing. It's what I've done since I was a kid, I love it. And, his comments were, they were said wholeheartedly. I didn't feel that any way towards them. But no, absolutely not, Jim. And at this rate, he'll be my next opponent. Because
we had boxed the same opponent, and they asked him what he thinks of me, and he dismissed me. And for me, it was a very dismissed.
What did he say?
He said that it will be his tune-up fight, like his comeback fight. So I said, well, if I'm a comeback fight, come and see if I'm really a comeback fight, and I've been gunning at him ever since, of course. And we got it turned personal. It got personal, and he didn't like that. We started going back and forth over the years.
You've said you're going to knock him out, right?
Yeah, just smash him to pieces. That's the plan, obviously.
I'll be honest, it's a good plan.
No, obviously we.
That's not going to happen, though. You know that.
Bad intentions.
We'll get to what Jim White asked Fraser in a little bit. Can anyone make a case for Jamie TKV in this fight?
Yeah, I can. I can make a case for it. Look, I think the Fraser Clark starts the favourite for sure, and I think he
we need to make a case for it being a good fight first off, don't we?
Absolutely.
There's an argument that it might not be a bit of a stinker.
That's the point. That Jamie TKV has the ability to do that. You know, he can be very, and we saw that he was turning the Adelaide fight around, but it was making it a very ugly fight. But what he does is very effective. I think he's very awkward, unpredictable, and for that reason, it could become a frustrating night for Fraser Clark. I expect Fraser...
And also Fraser can be sucked into that.
Absolutely.
He can be dragged into a type
stinker.
of stinker fight.
So you could, you know, it's an interesting fight, this one. It's by no means a foregone conclusion for sure. I mean, Fraser, as I say, will start.
Fire Spencer for BBC. I hope it's a good fight. So the fans that are tuning in will tune in for the next one, because boxing back on terrestrial telly, we need it.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what promoter it's with, we need boxing back on terrestrial TV.
The saving grace is that you don't see many bad British title fights, do you? So fingers crossed.
I mean, I touched upon the point of what Jim White was asking him, and I don't think Jim was trying to be overly mean-spirited about asking Fraser, you know, what he wanted to do and where he wanted to go, and could he see himself coming through this fight, and so on and so forth. But where do we see Fraser, if Fraser achieves what he believes he's going to achieve, whether it's smashing Jamie TKV or winning the fight, where do we see the direction of travel for Fraser, and where does he go next after this fight?
Well, I think it's just about gaining that experience at that next level then. You know, you look at your Gerard Anderson, you know, Martin Bacoli, you got Ajagba, Frank Sanchez. That's the sort of next level before stepping up. You know, you got the European title route. Yeah. I mean, he's at that age now, you know, at 34 years of age, that you sort of, it's not about holding him back anymore, but it's about developing him and taking the right fights at the right time. And I think that sort of level of opponent, for me, that's where he needs to go to gain that experience before trying to jump up again. But it's an interesting one because we don't know where his ceiling's at. We don't know exactly how good he is. Yeah, all right, the Fabio Wardley loss was a shocker, but he's come back against Ebenezer Teti and took him out in fashion. And you go, you know, he's gained that confidence back now. Let's see where it takes him.
The Wardley fight for me wasn't one of them where that's what should have happened in the first fight. I think that was a bit of a surprise and a great win for Wardley.
That was heavyweight boxing.
Can I ask you a question? Because I've always wondered this with Fraser and a lot of other people in the pros. Do you think he stayed amateur too long? Do you think it was one cycle too many?
Well, the answer would be yes. 100%. I think that, you know, you fall into that trap of staying amateur and you know, sticking around those cycles to try and get your opportunity.
Was it his fault though? That's it.
No,
it's good intentions. You're right. It's a good question.
No, because he was. You know, you had Anthony Joshua, who was the number one, and you know, you're waiting for him to go before you get the opportunity. So you got 4 year cycles for the Olympics, and I understand. You know, he wanted to achieve that and tick that off, but then you go, because of that, and you know, the system of boxing in the amateurs, you go now. What we hadn't seen from Fraser Clark until the first Fabio Wardley fight was that he could go through those levels, go through those gears, change the pace, because we watched him against people like Marius Wack, and you look at the performance and go, come on, mate, give us a little something else now, because it's about impressing, and this is your opportunity against a human punch bag in Marius Wack, who he was then. But he sort of like trickled over the line with that one. And you look at it and you go, but
they've stayed. I think because his style has remained very similar to that.
There's a few fighters that have done it, and you can't blame him either. He's got to wait for Anthony Joshua to do it, then he's got to wait for Joe Joyce, then it's his turn.
But that's not the point. I think what he done was he answered all the questions that we didn't know or didn't think that he could do against the Fabio Wardley fight, because in that fight he showed character, he showed that he could go through the levels and whatnot. And yeah, in the return he got caught with a shot, and that's heavyweight boxing, and it happens. But he come back against Ebenezer Teti, and you go, that was a solid performance. Teti's a tricky customer as well.
Spence, you mentioned about taking time to develop and moving up. We are at a stage where how much time does he have? He doesn't have this much time.
Well, Simon, that's why I'm saying, like, you know, you're talking about Ajagba, you're talking about Anderson, you're talking about Sanchez. They're like fringe contenders. Yeah. But so it's a big move up. Yeah. Like you say, you know, because of the time and whatnot, it is about just taking those fights. Say, let's see if you're good enough there. And if you're good enough there, then we're talking about going into world level. But so it's not about taking time, but it's just about, you know, gradual steps up. But he hasn't got the time to maybe 3 or 4 fights before you go there.
I hear you. I mean, the most important thing is what we want to see is we want to see on that night, because we've got 2 fights going on that night, we want to see a great fight on terrestrial TV, because it obviously launches a new terrestrial TV campaign, and we want to see a great fight from Fabio Wardley. So we'll look forward to it.